Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for the Acolyte Episode 1, Lost and Found. I'm going to do a little bit of spoiler free and then I'll get into spoilers. You'll have plenty of warning. So if you haven't seen the episode, stick around for a few minutes. And then if you have seen the episode, make sure to stick around for the full episode because we're going to get into everything that happened in this episode. I'll have a separate video for episode 2, so I'm going to break these up into individual videos. So let's get into it. This is directed and written by Leslie Headland, who is also the creator of the show, and it stars Amanda Stenberg, whose role I'll get into more into spoilers. We also have Lee Young Ye from you may remember him from Squid Games as Master Soul, Charlie Barnett as Yord Fandar. He's a Jedi Knight. We also have Daphne Keene as Jackie Lon, who is a Padawan, and Carrie-Anne Moss as Master Indara, another Jedi Master. So let's talk about spoiler free. This was a very interesting opening of the show. We get to see that we are in an explore territory, really, especially for the live action stuff, right? Obviously, the High Republic books and comic books have really explored everything that's prior to the Empire, right? Way before. But this is different. This is a new thing. I don't think we've had a kind of like a mystery thriller type of Star Wars property where it really focuses on like the mystery, right? The overall plot is that there's been a Jedi has been murdered, and now the Order needs to find out who the assassin was. And I think that employing this setting of a it's always a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago. But now we have a little bit more specificity of like where in the timeline are we? Right, we are 100 years before the rise of the Empire, so it's a blank canvas for the creators to go in and really implement a lot of the lore, take some of the existing stuff, and maybe show us, the evolution from the Jedi Order, from the High Republic into what we saw after the Empire rose. So I think it's a very interesting premise. I'm definitely very excited for the people in front of the camera, and although I'm not very familiar with the people behind the camera, I have a lot of interest in seeing where we're going to go with this because, like I said, unexplored territory in Star Wars is usually the most fun. Um, and I think introducing this concept of like the Jedi, like how do you murder a Jedi? Like, there's not a lot of accounts, even from what we've seen, other than, of course, the big one that happened in Order 66. But that was a really a big mass planned betrayal, right? This is like, how do you take out a Jedi one on one, where you do that as an assassin? And then also, what are the motivations behind this assassin? So yeah, technically, I think it looked very good. I love that it felt to me like they were using a lot of practical settings. We get to see a diverse kind of creatures. We see some races of aliens that we've seen before. We see some designs that are pretty new to Star Wars characters, and maybe they're not around for a whole lot of time, but it's still really interesting to explore what make sure that not everybody looks like a humanoid. As much as I love Andor, it was one of the things that we didn't really see a lot of creatures or like a lot of aliens or a lot of different beings that were not really just humanoid, which makes a little bit more sense. I think Andor is a little bit more of a political thriller, which doesn't really require the sci-fi element as much, right? It's really just a story that takes place in the Star Wars world. But this is something like that. But I'm really glad that they're introducing a lot of aspects that I've never even heard of about the lore. A lot of concepts that would make sense in a place like this, and a lot we get to see a bunch of different settings. We get to see a Coruscant 100 years ago. We get to see different planets that I don't think we had ever visited. Yeah, so overall, the concept of it is very solid. It's still interesting to see how there's still a lot of politics involved with the Jedi, even at this time. And so, really, the evolution of the Order has always had this anchor, like bringing them down as far as like their public persona is very important to them. And then, of course, we get to see a lot of the themes of like can the Jedi have emotions and attachments, and what happens when they do, and what happens when what happens when a Jedi kind of loses his way, or it's really interesting stuff like that. The first episode, it really just sets up a lot of questions more than answers, but obviously that's kind of what we're in for. I'm interested. I haven't watched the second episode as of the making of this video, specifically to not go into any details because I wanted to work on this as a standalone thing. So I think I'll talk more about this on my second video. But I think it's interesting that they picked a 2 episode arc to begin, so that we could really dive into this world, right? The episode was around 40-45 minutes. So, that's Disney Plus time, though, so include a bunch of credits at the end. So, yeah, definitely intrigued. And I'm really excited to go watch the second part. So, all right, we are gonna get into spoilers now. I'm gonna go through all the details and everything that kind of happened, just to make sure that we don't have any questions, and if we do have questions, make sure that we all kind of agree on it. So, as I mentioned, this is set 100 years before the rise of the Empire. We see Master Indara, who's played by Carrie-Anne Moss, is challenged by an assassin in a cantina, and this is unfortunately, due to the trailers, I knew that Carrie-Anne Moss was going to be the character that was going to be assassinated. It just kind of made sense based on the way the trailer was cut, the locations, and it make she is a pretty busy person, and it would make sense that you would cast somebody as important and somebody as recognizable as her. But it was really nice to see her on screen. I think she really works as a Jedi. Interesting to see the parallels to a character like her most famous character, of course, Trinity from the Matrix. So it's interesting to see how they kind of made some parallels. Especially her fighting style was really interesting. A lot of martial arts influence, as opposed to right away going for the lightsaber, which kind of comes up in the fight as well. So yeah, we get a full action-packed cantina brawl as this assassin takes out a bunch of people before kind of like goading Master Indara into a fight. We get to see some space kunai, which is really cool. And it is at this point that we do finally get to see our first lightsaber here. It's a green lightsaber wielded by Master Indara. And then, yeah, the assassin uses distraction and the people that were around is kind of like leverage to take out Master Indara. So it is definitely a good way to show how strong of an opponent this assassin is. But obviously, she couldn't a one-on-one. She could not have taken out Master Indara. So it is really the revelation of like having to use these underhanded tactics, and that's how you take out a Jedi. So we then jump over and meet Osha, who looks a lot like the assassin, but works on a ship. We'll get to that. And that's the character played by Amanda Stenberg. So, as you probably already surmised, Amanda Stenberg plays a set of twins, May, who is the assassin, Osha, who was a former Jedi. And we meet her. She's working on the ship. 2 Jedi arrive looking for her. And this is where we find out a little bit about her leaving the Order. Now, we meet the character of Yord, um, who is on edge, really. Like, he immediately, like, because they believe her to be an assassin, he immediately almost reaches for his lightsaber, which is really interesting. I think that was very well played. Like Osha doesn't know what's going on; she's just putting her stuff away, and it is at this moment that I don't know. I feel like the Jedi should be able to feel intent too, right? That's something that they normally do. So, yeah, interesting enough. So we get to see another Jedi as well, and then we are brought into both Jordan and Osha were brought in by Master Soul. So we'll meet Master Soul later on. We're off to Coruscant. Really cool to see Coruscant 100 years prior to everything that we know because it looks completely different. Also, we were in the daylight. We were probably somewhere else. The Jedi Temple wasn't what it is, what we knew it to be at the time. The city itself was not what we knew it to be during the prequel movies. So yeah, just all those little details, all that exploration and the world building is really cool. Um, Another thing that really struck me here is that a Jedi approaches Master Soul as he's finishing a lesson. which is really great to see him just like impart knowledge to the younglings. But the Jedi is worried about the political implications of like what happens if people outside of the Order find out that it was that a Jedi has been killed by who someone who they believe was a former Jedi. Like that would be like a blemish on the organization, which is really it's a wild concept to think about. That it's like I don't know, do the Jedi have like a PR department? That's just not something I've ever thought about. So um, the prisoners in OSHA's transport try to escape, which leads to the ship crash landing. OSHA was the only one that was actually left behind. So as they get the news, Sol requests permission to go find his old Padawan OSHA, and he takes in uh, Jackie, who is a Daphne Kin, who is a Padawan, and also Yord, who is familiar with OSHA as well. And they're the ones that go look for her. Now, in the crash land, the planet, we see that OSHA has a vision of her sister in their home planet. They do a really smart thing to have May being played by a younger actress. So, like, her sister's remembering, she doesn't know what she looks like now. She remembers her as a younger person. So, it's a very smart way to actually have both, like, different actors play different characters. But we know that eventually, like, May and Osha are going to be played by the same person in the when they meet up in the real world or in the current timeline. So that's all those little things. I think they're very smart. I think it leads to efficient storytelling and efficient filmmaking, really. So we do see that Soul and the Jedi find Osha, and they realize they kind of put together that May is alive, right? When I think Soul, with his experience, realizes that there's no way that Osha could have been the one that did this to Indara. So May returns to her base at the end, and this is the last scene of the episode. And we hear a stranger talking. And this individual talks about how the Jedi cannot be taken by weapons, but an acolyte can destroy the order. And then this is where we see our first red lightsaber, and the episode ends. So very exciting stuff, really cool visuals. Yeah, I can't wait to go watch the second episode. I'm about to go do that right now. But if you have seen this episode, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, and may the force be with you. Bye bye.